Now broadcasting from beautiful downtown Tallahassee, it's Classic Movie Reviews with Snark.
Welcome to today's show. My name is John. As always, you can subscribe to the show on iTunes or follow the links to social media in the podcast show notes. You can also go to snarkymoviereviews.com to read notes, bios, and other random movie thoughts. Remember, this show is completely free and independent. All I ask is that you jump over to iTunes and give me a review. Today's movie is Take the High Ground! 1953. This movie is a macho bonanza. Elaine Stewart is virtually the only woman in the movie. I like this movie because it's a totally accurate portrayal of basic training. Richard Widmark plays the role of Sergeant First Class Thorne Ryan. Widmark was covered in Episode 18, The Vikings, 1958. Carl Malden played Staff Sergeant Laverne Holt. Malden was covered in Episode 26, Time Limit, 1957. Russ Tamblyn played Recruit Paul Jameson. During this movie, he was able to use his considerable acrobatic skills in many of the scenes, for example, hopping along a line of bunks. Tamblyn was covered in Episode 18, The Vikings, 1958. Jerome Cortland played Elvin C. Carey and was briefly mentioned in Episode 50, Battleground, 1949. Bert Freed played Master Sergeant Vince Opperman. Freed was covered in Episode 73, Billy Jack, 1971. Elaine Stewart played the role of the troubled Julie Mollison. Stewart was born in New Jersey in 1930. She grew to be very beautiful and was modeling while she was still a teenager. Hal B. Wallace gave her a small unbilled role in Sailor Beware 1952 with Martin and Lewis. She was later signed with MGM, where they hoped to turn her into a dark-haired Marilyn Monroe. The studio brought her up slowly through the system in films such as Singin' in the Rain 1952, You for Me 1952, Everything I Have Is Yours 1952, Sky Full of Moon 1952, and A Sexy Lush in The Bad and the Beautiful 1952. Stewart was a popular pinup model and eventually posed in Playboy. She continued with Code 2 1953, Young Bess 1953, as about the only female in Take the High Ground 1953 with Richard Widmark, the musical Brigadoon 1954, co-starring Gene Kelly and Van Johnson, Night Passage 1957, The Tattered Dress 1957, and Escort West 1958. She made a few movies in the 1960s, but was mostly in television. Stewart's second marriage was to game show creator Meryl Heater. She left acting to raise her children. She returned as a game show hostess, first with Wink Martindale and later with Alex Trebek. She died at the age of 81 in 2011. Steve Forrest played the role of the solid Lobo Neglowski. Forrest was the youngest of 13 children born to a Baptist minister and his wife. Well, what were they teaching at that church? Anyway, one of his brothers was actor Dana Andrews. Forrest began as a contract player for MGM. In 1942, Forrest joined the Army, where he rose to the rank of sergeant before fighting in the Battle of the Bulge. His brother, Dana Andrews, played a major in the movie The Battle of the Bulge 1965. Following his time in the Army, Forrest went to Hollywood and met with his brother Dana. Forrest decided to go into acting. He graduated from UCLA in 1950 with a theater degree. He worked various stage jobs until he was discovered by Gregory Peck. Right off the bat, Forrest had a great career, being recognized as New Star of the Year in 1953 for his role in So Big 1953. Some of his other roles include The Bad and the Beautiful 1952, Battle Circus 1953, Dream Wife 1953, I Love Melvin 1953, Take the High Ground 1953, The Bandwagon 1953, The Clown 1953, The Saber and the Arrow 1953, Prisoner of War 1954, Rogue Cop 1954, The Long Gray Line 1955, The Longest Day 1962, and Mommy Dearest 1981. Unlike many other stars, Forrest worked actively in television during his entire career. He had one series on the BBC, The Baron 1966, and another in America, SWAT 1975. He lampooned his own screen personality in Amazon Women on the Moon 1987, Forrest died in 2013. African-American William Hairston played the bookish Daniel Hazard. For some reason, this actor never made another movie. Story. It's basic training all over again. This movie begins during the Korean War in 1951. Sergeant First Class Thorne, Richard Widmark, leads a group of men up a hill through machine gun fire. One man stops for a drink of water and he is killed by a sniper. Thorne looks at him with disgust. One of the men following him is Carl Malden. Thorne destroys the machine gun and takes the hill. They show a quote from Images of War and War of Images, edited by Gerard Hughes and Karine Hildebrandt, that says, quote, "An infantryman once said, 'There was a time I wanted to kill my drill sergeant, but later in combat I thanked God for what he taught me. I found out that a drill sergeant, tough as he was, wasn't as tough as the enemy.'" Unquote. The scene switches to Fort Bliss, Texas in 1953. Very sharp troops are loading onto a train while Sergeant First Class Thorne Ryan and Staff Sergeant Laverne Holt look on a group of raw recruits. Ryan tells them that they will never make it and the men boarding the train are real soldiers because they made it.
America's fighting men. Soldiers. You will never make it. Now, those men are soldiers. They made it. This gentleman is Sergeant Holt. I'm Sergeant Ryan. We people are going to snap you people out of your winsome civilian ways.
Recruit Russ Tamblyn smarts off and gets on the sergeant's radar. The Army has just been integrated by President Truman, and there is one black recruit that has books on war with him. Sergeant Laverne Holt starts out with the men easy, and then he gets hard. It's the classic good cop, bad cop thing. Sergeant Holt runs the men to Supply where they get their footlockers, mattresses, uniforms, and equipment. It hasn't changed. Having been in the Army, watching this movie, and having read Basic, Surviving Boot Camp and Basic Training, 2012, by Colonel Jack Jacobs and David Fisher, I am convinced that nothing may have changed since 1775. Sometime in the future I will review The Boys in Company C, 1978, and Full Metal Jacket, 1987, to expound on this concept. You will be shocked at how similar they are, and trust me, similar to reality. Anyway, back to the story where they are getting a haircut. When they say the clothes are too small, the supply sergeant says to lose weight. Too big, gain weight.
Here we go. Come on, move it along. Get up, boy. Try it. Move! It's daylight in the swamp. Don't worry, they'll fit. Throw them in the bag. What a stink off a collection of rugged individuals.
Look, Sergeant,
Shut
these are
up,
important.
I don't get paid for pampering you, Pounce. In the bag. Move on.
They are issued their weapons under the watchful eye of Sergeant First Class Thorne Ryan. When the African-American calls it a gun, he gets the poem. Quote, "This is a rifle and not a gun. It's made for shooting and not for fun." Unquote.
This is your rifle. It's your best friend, and you're going to know it like your best friend, starting now. Memorize the serial number.
Hazard, Daniel.
114. Speak up, lad. You're burning daylight. And you a reader. You can't even read numbers.
There's something on this gun. Grease or something.
So now it's a gun, huh? Get it off! Or are you afraid of soiling those delicate hands?
1473828.
Hey, reader. Come here. You happy here? You think you found a home?
Well, yes. Now that I got a gun to protect myself.
You like that gun, huh?
Yes.
You read all of Elizabeth Barrett Browning?
All I could find. You like a portrait?
Never touch your stuff.
Yes, Sergeant.
You're not dismissed yet. You read A Vision of Poets?
Yes.
Rhyme of the Duchess, Crowned and Buried, Aurora Leigh?
Did you?
Never touch your stuff. Remember the character who, I think it goes, who dreams of doing good for nothing people?
Yes, Sergeant.
And now, reader, I'm going to quote you a little poem that Mrs. Browning didn't write. This is your rifle. It's not your gun. It's made for shooting and not for fun.
That night in the barracks, Elvin C. Carey, Jerome Cortland, drops his rifle. Daniel Hazard, William Hairston, calls it a gun, and Paul Jameson, Russ Tamblyn, mocks them, and the two end up holding mops at arm's length while Paul recites he is a dumbhead.
What was that?
Nothing. He just dropped his gun.
Ooh, what you said.
Quiet!
You're the hero, and you like to talk. All right, what have you got to say for yourself?
Sergeant, when I grow up, I want to be just like you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Tell them more.
I'm a fat mouth.
And keep telling them until that clock hits 10:30. Good night.
I'm a fat mouth. But I pledge allegiance to my sergeant and to this here now army for which he stands.
Master Sergeant Vince Opperman, Bert Freed, comes to the NCO club where Ryan and Holt are shooting pool. The pair hate Opperman because he is not gung-ho enough and not aching to get back to the war.
Hello, laughing boy. Hello, slob.
Me, I just follow along.
What you need is a leadership course.
I don't need a leadership course to tell me you keep needling him, you'll be flirting with a Purple Heart.
The next morning, the drill sergeants wake the men up and they stumble over themselves getting dressed. The draftees begin their training by marching in drill. The men can't do anything right. The lieutenant gets on Ryan for being too hard on the men, the same rap he was getting from Opperman. Ryan spends his evenings requesting transfer back to combat. After a bit, the men are given the weekend off, and they all head south to Mexico. Ryan and Holt go to a bar where Julie Mollison, Elaine Stewart, is drinking with 5 of the recruits. Holt wants to find a woman, but Ryan just keeps messing around playing sideshow games, watching movies, and eating. When they go to another club, Julie is dancing with Jameson. Ryan strongly suggests that the privates head back to base. With her party ruined, Julie joins the sergeants. Holt is all in, but Ryan hates her. He says she is complex and drunk, and he likes them simple and sober.
Why'd you do that? They're not due back till roll call.
You know, I'm not due back at all.
Join us. Sit up.
Thank you. Don't you like me or something?
No.
Now, wait a minute. I didn't say that. He's speaking for himself.
Why not?
You're flying on that lousy flit.
No, I think it's becoming.
Also, I don't like a woman picking up the check.
It's only money.
Only money? My ma always said you can be happy with a rich one.
And I don't like anybody tanking up a bunch of kids.
Doesn't bother me, not one bit.
Look, we were just trading a few laughs, that's all. You know what a laugh is, don't you?
A stranger.
You don't know anything about me.
Oh, yes, I do. There's a million like you. You're just a crazy, mixed-up kid. Complex and drunk. I like 'em simple and sober.
When this makes her break down, they scoop her up and take her to her home. Ryan can't help becoming attracted to Julie. She tells Ryan he hates the world. Back at camp, they begin working the confidence course, and then go to the gas chamber where they are exposed to tear gas. I still remember the day I came out of the gas chamber, with a flood of liquids coming out of every hole in my head. As the 16 weeks pass, the recruits begin to do everything right. They take their long hike, which is a major milestone of basic training. They have a very accurate mail call scene. Ryan goes to a bar and sees Opperman is there. When Opperman tries to buy Ryan a drink, he refuses. Holt is there with Julie. The trio sit together and Ryan and Julie start bickering. Opperman comes over and Julie becomes nervous. Opperman insults Julie and she runs out. Opperman and Ryan get into a fight in the street. Ryan forces Opperman to tell the tale. The story is that she walked out on her husband while he was in Korea, and he got himself killed as a result. Holt takes Julie home, and he is starting to fall for her. Ryan throws himself into his work and is extra hard on the men. After Ryan smashes gum into the face of Tex, Naglowski, Steve Forrest, has contempt for the drill instructor. He goes to the chaplain and says he wants to kill his drill sergeant. The chaplain has heard it before and helps the man to understand the role of the sergeant.
What's your trouble, son?
Well, I want to kill a man. You're a drill sergeant.
Yeah. If I don't kill him, he'll kill us all. Bury us deep.
What's he done?
Well, he climbs all over us. Do this, do that. Tearing us apart, gnawing it to pieces. Making murderers of us.
Why would he do that?
I don't know. I know he's got to make soldiers out of us. I know it's his job. But
he could take the time to be a little more pleasant if he had the time, couldn't he?
Well, I don't know. He's only got 16 weeks.
Holt is keeping time with Julie, and he and Ryan get into a fight over the way he is treating the men and Julie. Ryan continues his personal war on the men. During a GI party, cleaning, the tension boils over and the men get into a fight. The men stay up all night and get everything ready for the inspection. Ryan climbs all over them in the morning during inspection, crushing their spirits. The men go out for the under-barbed wire crawl while machine guns fire overhead drill. This is followed by the combined arms demo and live fire exercise. Private Dover stops and takes a drink out of his canteen, and Ryan pours the man's canteen out. Ryan and Holt get into a fight, and Holt slugs Ryan in front of the men. After the field exercise, Ryan bums around looking for Holt, but no one wants to deal with him. Ryan tells Tex he is going to drum him out of the Army. Tex holds a weapon on him, and Ryan goes downrange and makes Tex fire through his legs at the target. Wouldn't happen. Ryan goes to Julie's house and asks her out. She asks if Offerman said anything about her. Ryan says no, and they get all kissy-face.
I don't know anything about you.
Look, are you coming or not?
I mean, like maybe, don't you want to know something about me?
No, I don't want to know something about you. I don't care what you were last year, last week, or yesterday. I'm interested in you now.
Julie insists on telling the entire tale. When she backs away, Ryan tries to make her drink the tea. They get into a fight, and he insults her, and she throws him out. Ryan takes the men to the grenade range. Dover doesn't throw his grenade. Ryan pulls the pin, but Dover just ducks. Ryan throws the grenade at the last minute. The company bivouacs for the night, and Holt heads into town. That night, Dover goes AWOL. Since Ryan has been doing this for a while, he knows where Dover is headed and waits for him there.
How did you find out?
Very simple. Any fool going over the hill would head south till he hit the security guard posted at gate 6. Then his first impulse would be to head either east or west. But there's a 12-foot fence, barbed wire, as far as the eye can see. So then he'd head cross-country, find the trail, and here you are.
Ryan gives Dover a second chance, saying that his own father was a deserter. After the training cycle is over, Ryan goes to Julie's house, and she has moved out. He finds Julie at the train station, and Holt is with her. Holt leaves so Ryan and Julie can talk. Ryan says he is sorry for the way he acted, and he asks her to marry him. She says no, Ryan is already married to the Army.
Where are you going?
I'm going away.
Running away's no good, Julie.
Maybe I'll live to fight another day.
You'll only fight yourself. I know. I've been running away and fighting myself ever since I can remember.
I'm still going away.
I'm sorry for what happened, Julie. For what I said and did. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Stay here, Julie. Nobody lives alone.
You're wrong. Everybody does. It's the fashion today. Everybody lives alone.
War. I need you. I want to marry you.
No. You're married to the Army. It's good for them. It's good for you.
You'd be good for me if you stayed, but I guess I'd be bad for you.
Maybe we'd be bad for each other.
Ryan tells her he will be there if she changes her mind. After Julie is gone, Ryan and Holt make their peace without a word. Back on base, the men have finished their training. They have replaced the troops they saw 16 weeks before loading the train. Before they board, they see Ryan with a new group of recruits saying that they will never make it. He points at his old company and says those men are soldiers.
America's fighting men. Soldiers. You're not even good targets for soldiers. You will never make it. Now those men are soldiers. They made it.
He borrows the company from Holt and pretends he doesn't know them. He takes over and sharply marches them around. This is a tribute to the men he has trained and an inspiration to the men he will train. Holt is still following Ryan. World-famous short summary. Two maniacs almost get together. If you enjoyed this week's show, please tell your friends. And if you really want to help, drop over to iTunes and give me a review. If you want to comment, recommend a movie, or just say hi, follow the links in the show note to my site. Beware the Moors.